All right, buckle up, everybody, because today we are diving deep into a question that's been swirling around online.
Ooh, sounds intriguing.
It is, trust me. It's all about whether America is truly as bad as it seems, especially, from a European perspective.
Ah, getting into the nitty-gritty of perceptions versus reality.
Yeah, exactly. And to get to the bottom of this, we are going straight to the source, a Reddit thread that is absolutely overflowing with opinions.
Oh, wow. So, like, real people, real experiences.
The real deal. And the original poster, they did not hold back, let me tell you.
Yeah.
They basically listed every single problem they could think of.
Okay, lay it on me.
All right, so we got drug abuse, mental health struggles, fanatical Christians, student loan debt, you name it.
Wow, painting quite the picture.
It's like a laundry list of anxieties about America, housing crises,
Mhm.
the works. They even threw in artificial food and GMOs for good measure. You'd think there's nothing good left, right?
It's interesting, though, right? Because it touches on so many different aspects of American society, the economic anxieties, the political climate, even cultural concerns.
For sure, it's not just a one-dimensional critique. But before we get too carried away, let's hear what other people had to say, get those different perspectives.
Absolutely. And one of the first responses that really jumped out at us was from a Texan. And they give a pretty stark view of life in the Lone Star State.
Oh, this is where things get really interesting. They shared some pretty intense anecdotes, like their experience during that crazy power grid failure in Texas.
Oh gosh, yeah, I remember hearing about that. That must have been tough.
It was. Imagine having to boil snow just to get water for your kids. That's not exactly the American dream we hear about, right?
No, not at all. And their comments really highlight the frustration with Texas politics right now, the open carry laws, the difficulties with reproductive health care. It seems like there's this feeling that lawmakers are just totally out of touch with everyday people's struggles.
Totally. And it makes you realize that even within one country, the lived experiences can be so different depending on where you are and what your situation is.
Yeah, that's such a powerful point. And that leads us to another group of comments we saw from people who are really aware of their privilege and how it kind of shields them from a lot of these issues.
Right. There's one comment that stuck with me from this suburban American. Their biggest worry is lawn care and car maintenance.
Wow. Talk about a contrast, right?
Yeah.
Compared to folks dealing with poverty or violence.
It really puts things in perspective. It makes you think about empathy and awareness. Like, how do we even begin to bridge these gaps
Yeah.
in understanding when people's realities are so different?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And it's easy to get caught up in your own bubble. But sometimes even people in seemingly comfortable situations get a harsh dose of reality. Like, take the American healthcare system.
Ooh, yeah, that's a whole other can of worms. There was this one story about a person who had good insurance, at least that's what they thought.
Uh-oh.
And then they had a medical issue, and bam, suddenly they're stuck in this maze of confusing processes and bills, even debt collection. It became a total nightmare.
That is so scary. It really shows how complex and frankly predatory the American healthcare system can be.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Even with supposedly good insurance, people can get completely overwhelmed and end up facing financial ruin because of medical expenses. It's crazy.
It definitely challenges that image of affordable, accessible healthcare that you see in other parts of the world.
For sure. And speaking of comparisons, we saw a lot of back and forth between Americans and Europeans in this thread, and things got pretty interesting there.
Ooh, I bet. What were some of the things they were saying?
Well, for example, there was one American who had lived in Europe and said they actually felt safer there because there wasn't such a huge emphasis on physical security.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they felt like Americans were just more on edge, always worried about things like mass shootings.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But then you have another American who felt that Europe was actually more xenophobic and less welcoming to outsiders.
Oh, so two completely different takes on it.
Exactly. It shows how perceptions can be totally subjective and based on personal experience.
Hmm.
So it's important to, be cautious of those sweeping generalizations.
Totally. It's like a reminder to always consider multiple perspectives and avoid making assumptions.
Right. And speaking of multiple perspectives, this thread also highlights how America itself is a land of extremes. Like there are these huge differences in experiences based on wealth, location, social standing, all of that.
Oh, for sure. It's not a one-size-fits-all kind of place.
Nope, not at all.
Yeah.
One comment that really stood out to me was, America's the best place to be if you're rich, but absolute dog shite to be poor in. And it's blunt, but it kind of gets to the heart of the matter.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful. And it speaks volumes about the growing wealth gap in America and how it affects every single aspect of life, from healthcare to education, even just the ability to move up in the world.
Absolutely. And that seems to be a recurring theme in all of this. This sense of a system that's crumbling, of political corruption, and a nation that's on a downward trajectory. And it's a feeling that's especially strong among younger generations.
It's like there's this palpable mix of frustration, helplessness, and this yearning for something better. But finding solutions to these deeply rooted issues is incredibly complex.
So where does this leave us? Our Reddit deep dive has painted a pretty complicated picture of America, wouldn't you say?
It really does. It seems like America's grappling with so many challenges, right? From economic disparities to this crazy complex healthcare
And
system.
let's not forget about the political polarization and all the social anxieties.
Yeah, for sure. It's almost like the nation's trying to figure out its own identity, you know?
Yeah.
Like, what are its values? Where is it headed in the future?
It's like we're looking through a kaleidoscope
Mm.
with all these different pieces and colors and perspectives. And when you put it all together, it creates this picture that's, well, kind of unsettling at times.
And that's the thing, isn't it? America isn't this one big, homogenous blob. It's a massive, diverse country with so many different experiences woven together.
Absolutely. We've seen stories of hardship, of people really struggling, but we've also seen glimpses of hope, of resilience, of people making things work.
Exactly. Like, think about the Texan prepping for the next power outage, the suburban American acknowledging their privilege, the person with good insurance facing a healthcare nightmare.
It's like a mosaic, right? All these
Mhm.
different pieces coming together to create this complex whole.
Yeah, and it really reinforces the idea that whether America is bad or not depends entirely on who you ask and what their experiences have been.
It's all about perspective, right? What might seem like a negative aspect of American culture to one person could be a source of pride or opportunity for someone else.
Totally. It's like that saying, one person's trash is another person's treasure.
Exactly. And the discussion around media bias was also really interesting. That comment about how normal doesn't make news, that really got me thinking.
Oh, I know, right? It makes you wonder how much of what we see in the media is actually representative of reality.
It's like we're constantly bombarded with negativity and sensationalism. It's no wonder people have such a skewed view of things.
It's a good reminder to be critical of what we're consuming, to seek out different perspectives and not just take everything at face value.
Totally. We need to develop those critical thinking skills, especially in this age of 24-hour news cycles and information overload.
It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack sometimes, trying to figure out what's actually true. But it's so important, especially when we're talking about complex issues like the ones raised in this Reddit thread.
It's about questioning our assumptions, challenging the status quo, and really engaging with different viewpoints, even if they make us uncomfortable.
That's where real growth happens, right? When we step outside of our comfort zones and acknowledge that our own experiences might not be the whole story.
Absolutely. And this whole idea of America being a land of extremes, that really stood out to me as well.
Yeah, that comment about it being the best place to be if you're rich, but absolute dog shite to be poor in, that was pretty powerful.
It's like a stark illustration of the wealth gap and how it affects every aspect of life in America.
And that makes you wonder, right? Is the American dream, that idea that anyone can succeed through hard work, is that really achievable for everyone?
Especially when you consider all the systemic barriers and disadvantages that so many people face.
That's definitely something to think about. And then there's a sense of a crumbling system of political corruption that we saw come up a lot, especially from younger generations.
Yeah, it's like there's this feeling of helplessness, of wanting things to change, but not knowing where to even begin.
It's a tough spot to be in, and it highlights the need for those in power to start listening and taking action to create a more equitable and just society.
So where does all of this leave us? We've explored the good, the bad, and everything in between. We've heard from people with different backgrounds, different experiences, different perspectives. It's been a real journey. It's a lot to process, for sure. But that's kind of the point of these deep dives, right? To
Yeah.
challenge ourselves, to really grapple with these complex issues,
Exactly. And, to get those different viewpoints, it's not about having all the answers. It's about broadening our understanding.
for sure. And that kind of brings me to a final thought for everyone listening. Imagine you're booking that flight. You're about to experience America firsthand. What do you think you'd see? The land of opportunity or the one struggling with all these problems we've been talking about?
It's a good question, right? And the answer probably depends on a lot of things. Your own background, the choices you make as a traveler, even just how you view the world.
It really is. And it reminds us that even within a single country, there are so many different realities just waiting to be discovered.
And who knows? Maybe by engaging with all these perspectives, by having these conversations, we can start to bridge those divides a little bit.
Create a future where the American experience is, a bit brighter for everyone.
Couldn't agree more. And hey, if you enjoyed this deep dive into the heart of America, be sure to subscribe to Voices of the Soul for more conversations like this one.
Absolutely. And for even more content that'll challenge your perspectives and spark some good discussions, check out the Shauna Palaj YouTube channel.
Keep those minds working and those conversations going.
Until next time.